Oh, you're gonna record? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Looks like folks are still trickling in.
Hi, Garrett.
I know. Hey, Alan. I know Erica's not able to join. Laura is not going to be here. Melody should be here.
You do. Oh, sorry, Gary. Go ahead.
Are you thinking we could start without Melody?
I was gonna say you do have quorum if you wanted to call the meeting to order, or you guys can wait. I know you've got a packed agenda, so your call.
Yeah, I would.
Let's go.
I feel like, yeah. I like the attitude, Reed.
Cool. Let's call the meeting to order then at 6:48 p.m.
With Melody not here, who's taking minutes?
I can start. I also have this recorded as well.
Awesome.
I can
Thank you.
start. Yeah.
Okay, I don't got the agenda right in front of me, but I believe the Mountain Resilience Coalition is first on the agenda. Is that right?
Yes. And hey, it looks like we have Melody too. Hey,
Excellent.
Melody, we just called the meeting to order at 6:48, so just a few seconds ago.
Perfect. I'm still kind of.
So I'll grab the agenda, but I believe that is accurate. Garrett. Oh yeah, so we had Nederland sustainability indicators, yes, as the first topic.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, great. So let's start there. I'm going to share with you what they call the project brief. And so you'll be able to see that. Let me know if you don't see the project brief. It says Mountain Resilience Coalition at the top. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So as you might remember, Linda and Shannon, they were, I believe, at our November meeting. And so since then, we have been meeting once a week. We sort of took a month off in sort of mid-December through mid-January. And so we've been working on collecting data. When I say we, it's been mostly Linda and Shannon doing the heavy lifting. I've sort of just been involved in our weekly status meetings. And the point of this is to quantify and measure our sustainability efforts. So Linda and Shannon are here today to present the progress they've made. And in addition of just gathering data, there's a great section on recommended actions. And so I think that is an excellent section for us to review at a later date to put some prioritization around what else can we do? How can we move from where we are to where we want to be? And that might be just establishing some targets or some goals. So the work is coming to a close, and then that's why Linda and Shannon are here today. We expect to wrap up sometime in the next few weeks, and so they'll show us a few of the indicators they have documented, and I'd like to use 15 minutes at the end to really have a conversation about how we can use this tool moving forward. The last thing I want is for this to be just another Excel document on our Google Drive that sort of just gets lost. And so I want to get some insight from you on, how can we better leverage this information? How can we get this in front of decision makers for the town? And how can we use it to collaborate with other folks doing sustainability efforts? So keep those questions in mind as you hear from Linda and Shannon as they walk you through a few of the different indicators that they've collected. So Linda and Shannon, I believe they are both here. So thank you for attending. I'm going to stop sharing because they are going to share their screen. So Linda and Shannon, please take it away.
Sure. So this is Linda speaking. Thank you all for having us. It's true, we were with you back in November when we presented the concept, and Garrett did a good job in sort of summarizing the brief. Again, the Mountain Resilience Coalition is working with communities to try to establish a set of indicators that can be customized by communities to sort of set a baseline for their performance across 6 key areas of environmental sustainability. We sort of derive the framework off of the Global Sustainable Development Goals framework, but simplify it basically for communities. And we're now working with Nederland, and it's helping us refine this tool that we started and piloted with Gunnison County. And the sort of interview process and talking with Garrett and gathering information is just helping us refine those indicators and the type of data that's out there. And so we so appreciate being able to work with the town of Nederland as sort of one of our early adopting or sort of test communities. And we've come a long way. Yes, we took a bit of a break over the holidays. I was on a move myself across country, but we're pretty far along, and we think we might finish the data collection for 60 some odd indicators across 6 categoric areas. And when we bring up the spreadsheet or bring up the tool, we'll remind you of what those categories are, and you'll start to see the indicators kind of illuminate from the examples that we put in front of you. So I'm going to have Shannon, my colleague, pull that up for you, and maybe with a bit of guidance, because we're not as familiar with the WebEx meetings versus Zoom, but we're going to share our screen, or hopefully we can share and bring up the Mountain Sustainability Indicators tool.
Yes.
Now, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
So just to give you a kind of quick navigational, so as we go through it, we'll give you once again a sense of the structure of the tool. But again, we align with the global framework on the far left. We do sort of the naming or the definition of indicators in the first section. We then move into the sort of calculator where we plot the data. We get to a final data output, and as we move to the right of the spreadsheet, as Garrett said, we take a good hard inventory of all of the current and proposed actions that are already happening within the community. And then as we go through them, we just kind of top of mind put in some recommendations. By no means are they formalized quite yet, but they are going to be recommendations that we either see with respect to the data or respect to the actions. What might the community think about doing next with respect to this performance area? And the idea is once you baseline your performance, you intervene with great actions, you measure your performance again over time, we see what the tool is designed to do, which is data-driven action. So again, there are 6 themes. I'll mention them just summarily now, and then as we go through the examples that Shannon's going to display for you, you'll get a sense of them on the tool. So we start with climate action and impacts. We then get into energy, and we get into the realm of natural resources, including land, air, and water, then transportation and waste. And so we have 60 indicators roughly on our tool at the moment. Some we've added even in our work together with Nederland, and we can point out perhaps some of those. So I know that this is relatively small text, and so we've given you the sort of general sense of the structure and what the functionality is. I don't know if there's any way for us to enlarge this for you, but I will promise you that the graphs and the data that Shannon's going to show you is going to be in a larger format, just to illustrate for you the type of data. So again, once we have a category, we define the indicators that we believe would be most relevant to mountain communities. And we then sort of use a calculation section to sort of quantify or qualify that indicator. And then we sort of try to capture all of your current and proposed actions. And we make recommendations if they become immediately sort of maybe obvious or occur to us, but by no means, again, are they formalized. So we'll just go with giving you some examples, and it'll give you a little bit better navigation and flavor for the tool itself. So I'm going to allow Shannon to dive first into the first indicator that we wanted to demo for you today in the climate section.
So the first indicator that we wanted to talk about that is based on data that we've collected is the CO2 emissions by sector in the town of Nederland. And so we can see here on this graph that the majority of CO2 emissions are coming from the residential sector, followed by the commercial, industrial, and then the transportation sector. So when we're utilizing the MSI tool, we would look at a graph like this, and then the recommendations would have to do with how we could prioritize CO2 emissions reduction strategies. So that is an indicator around CO2 equivalents and carbon. The second type of indicator that we wanted to look at was having to do with energy. And so this indicator has to do with energy burden. So this is not a graph that I created, but this is a graph from the EPA, the data that they collect and then produce. And so we can see in this graph, blue is Colorado, and then orange, these colors are Nederland, and then the different variations in the color have to do with the different types of electricity generated. So this is electricity, or energy, sorry. Energy produced by electricity is this darker, and then the lighter is electricity produced by natural gas, and then this is other. And so what you can see by this graph is on the left side, we have the lowest income section of the town of Nederland and the state of Colorado. So 0 to 30% of the income bracket. And then over here, we have the highest income bracket. And what we can see by this graph is that in all areas of Colorado, lower income people are paying disproportionately more for their energy. So their energy burden is higher, but that is especially exasperated in the town of Nederland, where they're paying an exorbitant amount for energy as compared to the state of Colorado. So again, this is how much of their income percent, almost 30% of their income that they're paying, and this is the lowest income bracket within the state. A third, and Linda, feel free to chime in if you have it, or Garrett, if you have anything to add, but I'm just going to keep rolling through the indicators that we've decided to highlight. The third,
Shan, if you might just show them where they sit on the tool and then dive into the sort of bigger graph so they can just simply see in the tool in the energy section, the indicator energy burden is what Shannon just displayed for you. So it's one of 10 indicators in the energy section, and there lies the graph in the so-called dashboard. But then she just kind of blew that up for you so you could see it a little bit better. But you can see it's plotted to the actual tool as we move through the sections. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, yeah, totally. Thank you, Linda. So rolling through to the next one. So this is the energy section that we have a lot of different energy indicators, but that's the one that we decided to talk about, and that graph lives right here under energy burden. And the next section that we want to discuss is within the land use, natural resources, land and air. And we want to talk about land use within Boulder County. So here,
Hey, Shannon, I had a question.
yeah,
This is Reed.
yeah.
Back on that other, the energy usage on that graph, can you go back to that?
Yep.
Yeah. So do we know what other means? Is that firewood, or what do you think? What does other mean?
That could be, I mean, other in this specific graph could be, yeah, fire,
I mean, is propane part of the gas?
yes. So, yeah. So you can see kind of, I don't know if you can read this, but there's utility heating fuel type right here. The utility gas, electricity, fuel oil is separated. So the
Okay.
other includes coal, wood, solar.
Okay. And
That
the
makes
other question is, did you dive any deeper on this to see the cause? I mean, is this because they have poorly insulated homes, or because they can't take advantage of time of day billing issues because they can't afford the equipment? Or, I mean, do you have any idea of what's causing this?
So it typically in rural communities, and then Linda and Garrett, feel free to jump in, but in rural communities and mountain communities, the reason that energy is so much more expensive is, yes, more extreme temperature changes within the community, so more need for heat in the winter. And also, yeah, the lower income bracket definitely has more likely to have, you know, less well insulated homes, less energy efficient appliances, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I can't speak specifically to Nederland.
Reed, so just to follow on, I think Shannon, your insight is exactly spot on, and Shannon's answer too. The idea is once the data is telling you something, then you ask yourself, do we have current actions that assess further what is going on? Exactly that.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering.
And do we have like a weatherization program, for example, that would help address, reducing energy consumption, so therefore bills are reduced overall. So that might be a recommended action if something like that is already not happening. That
Well,
it might provoke the analysis and then further that recommendation.
but in the data collection, I'm not sure where this data came from, but can we tell, are these particularly rent tenants that have landlords versus homeowners as well? I mean, do we have any in the data? Where did the data come from, I guess, or how did you derive this? Is my question.
So this is not a graph that I produced. This is
Yeah,
from
I think if I'm not mistaken, and I'm glad that Dave Hachimochi's with us. I believe this is from Dave's presentation on energy a few months ago.
this this data is from the US Department of Energy, so it's from this website right here. So it generalizes homes. It's from the data actually comes from the utility, so it's not separated into, like you were saying, renter versus homeowner.
How do they know they're
Reed,
low income?
Reed, we can, so our indicators are just kind of like a starter kit indicators. But for example, if it was interesting for the community to customize and understand better sort of a secondary indicator as a result of this. So the breakdown that you're talking about, then we can dig deeper. But at first cut, we didn't look at that. But certainly, if that was interesting to the community, that would be exactly the type of action or recommendation we would recommend, that the community is interested in understanding deeper here. So the recommendation is to do more. So we at the higher level didn't necessarily dig that deep, but the information certainly exists. So from your utility, you can certainly get to the population or the population of consumers. And I would have to sort of take a look at it and see how it is that we derive the income level. But I do think we can get at that information, but this particular indicator, we simply as, you know, people producing the baseline data around this particular indicator didn't dive in deeper for that particular information that you're asking about.
I'd say first take, just, you know, doing little data analysis. This is very, very significant. We should definitely dive into this somehow deeper. I mean, we probably know it. We probably know that the low income are who they're renting from, and so yeah, that's very good data.
Yeah. So again, just looking at this graph, this is a percent income. This is not how much they're paying. So the way that they probably, or the way that I know the state of Colorado collects this data is based on the average, how much people are paying for electricity or for energy versus how many people pay in this income bracket, if that makes sense. This is not dollar amounts, this is percent income.
No, but it goes to standard of living, you know.
Yeah.
But exactly that's what we want to provoke, is if this indicator at a high level is provoking this level of conversation and it really stands out as an area that you may want to focus on, then certainly deeper data collection can happen in order to inform the decision making for sure. So let's dive on to the next one. But yeah, that was a really good conversation around just even one indicator.
And I apologize, I actually have to jump off in 7 minutes to go to class, but the next indicator that we were thinking about highlighting as particularly relevant to Nederland has to do with this one right here, which is open space and parks. And so what we can see is that Boulder County produces a map like this for the entire county. And so the goal of an indicator like this is to compare every year. This darker green is open space. And then there's more specific types of open space. But the idea is that this serves as a baseline. And so every year or every 5 years, when we're looking at sustainability indicators, we can determine how much the open space and how much the green cover within a certain area has changed and how that is affecting the community. So that's why we have an indicator around land cover. And the final one I wanted to highlight has to do with the global SDG about clean water and sanitation. Has to do with natural resources and the specific natural resource of water. So the snow water equivalent in the Boulder Basin, there's this very cool online tool that we can utilize to look at how the snowpack is changing. So we see here this line that just popped up is the 2021 snow water equivalent in the Boulder watershed district. And this is an online tool, again, not something I created, but this is a really valuable source of data because we can go through and look at all of these years that they've been collecting data at this SNOTEL site since 1980. And we can compare the snow water equivalent from 2021 graphically to 1980 to 2017. We know is a really low snow year. 2018 we knew, 2017-18 was a really low snow year. 2018-19 was a really high snow year. So we can compare all of these years to our snow water equivalent here as a way to see how the snowpack is changing over time. This is really important, obviously, for sustainability planning and planning of environmental planning having to do with a watershed. So those are the indicators that we chose to highlight. Again, there's a whole bunch in our tool that we have collected all this data for. And we're hoping that having all of this data will lead to some metric-driven goal setting over the next time frame that Nederland chooses to set their sustainability goals.
So, folks, I'm just going to chime in here. Shannon had sort of told us in advance that she has a class this evening, so I'm going to let her sign off and try to share my screen in case over the next 10 to 15 minutes we want to have any additional questions about not only what you've been able to see here, but also what we might, how we might put this to good use. So let me try to share. Shannon, thank you very much. Enjoy your class this evening, and we'll pick up where we left off, but thank you for that demonstration.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.
Ooh. Do you all see that?
Yeah, it looks great now.
Okay. So I know that that was a very quick demo, but that was really the idea is we had given sort of, and it was quite a while ago, sort of just a structural sort of sense of what the functionality of this tool is. And now you can see that a few months later, we've already gotten our hands pretty deep into the data and at least one pass in collecting the best data that's out there. So as Shannon said a couple of times, our goal is not to reproduce great data that's already produced by other people that are experts in the field. Our goal is to collect the data or give the user a sense that look at this great data that exists around this indicator. Where we do need to produce data and sometimes do the calculations, we do that. But for the most part, we're trying to find the best data source for that particular indicator. And I think that you already have some great insights that if this is the high level information, what might we do with it? Do we want to drill in deeper in order to inform, what are we going to do about it? So this is kind of in a way like a conversation starter or a starting point around a particular performance area. But it really depends on the priorities of the town as to how far you want to take it. So for example, Reed had a great insight, and one of our recommendations would be, well, if the town of Nederland actually wants to focus in on that area because it has a sense that that's what it needs to target, then maybe we'd say, well, a graduate student maybe for a particular semester might do some analysis or research around that if, for example, the town doesn't necessarily have, additional capacity to do that. Or maybe that's some study, that analysis that Garrett would do, or even you could ask consultants or others to do if it's really the area that you want to focus on. So you're going to probably find that in a number of areas where the higher level indicator is just giving you a sense of, wow, what can we do about that? And most likely you would have to drill down deeper in order to sort of finally make some great policy decisions or actions in order to start to change the performance around that particular area. So with that, I'm not sure if we cruise through it too quickly. If the structure is a question, I can always review that with folks, but maybe this is a good point to sort of leave it open to you and ask some questions about what you got to see and if there's anything I can clarify. Garrett?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Yeah, first off, I particularly I view this as a starting point. We've put this in front of Karen, Karen Blakemore, when she's doing her Envision sustainability work. So we're very much aligned with Envision 23, and I see this tool supporting the efforts that are documented as part of that planning process. But this this tool, it's great because it's sort of all in one place. There's a lot of different resources here, and it's essentially a database for us to use and to dive in deeper if we need to. But I really want to hear what you all think about this.
This is Alan. The data about the low-income people and how much they're paying for energy got my attention. And in discussions with Dave, we tried to see if we could find people who aren't getting energy assistance and see if they would apply for it, and then maybe qualify for low-income solar in addition to that. So get energy assistance, potentially get some help in getting their places more energy efficient. And I don't know what kind of response we got, because it was basically.
Hey, Alan, I've been seeing some ads that Excel will put solar and batteries on a house for free. And that might be something we can dig into a bit. One of the ways to reduce your energy costs is to be able to buy your power off peak and not be a load on the system. And it's a big advantage for Excel as well. That was actually something that I've been focusing on recently. I think I just saw an ad about it.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think anything we can do. I mean, to me, it's an ideal target because we're helping low-income people, and we probably would have a disproportionate impact on our energy usage at the same time. In other words, reducing our energy usage. So I think it's a very good target to dig deeper on, and then use renewables, insulation, etc. Reduce the need and then provide lower cost energy, more sustainable energy.
This is Hunter, and I just wanted to add to what Reed was touching on. I'm just curious, are they paying a premium for the energy, or are they just using more, and that's why it's higher? Is it because it's low, the houses are inefficient, or is it that their behavior is not as efficient as it could be? And I really
think
thought
under that's a percentage of their income, so that would mean that there's a wealth gap issue, and this is just like proportionally how much do low income people have to pay out of their budget, but their budgets are much smaller. So
right.
It's just
Right.
that they have a heavier societal burden for their income level.
Yeah. I think that Linda's suggestion of like, do we need to offer like a weatherization program? And I think that would be, just because in this, we're talking about solar, well, we've got to make sure that the buildings are sealed and efficient and have, or just before we do the solar, that we've kind of made sure that the buildings are as efficient and sealed up as possible as well.
When I rented a house, for instance, back in the 90s in Allen's Park, we had a $700 electric bill one January, and then the next year, the electric company for free put in this brick heating system thing that would charge up off peak and then emit heat during the day. And they did it, it didn't cost the landlords anything. And our electric bill went down to like $100 in the dead winter. So there's gotta be solutions.
Yeah, and I'll just say I was in Snowmass, so also a mountain environment, and they replaced all of the windows in our condo community, and it went from, and they were built as relatively, not as insulated housing back in the 70s. and they put in these windows, and it changed people's, dollar amounts they paid on energy literally overnight. And so it really did come down to sort of a weatherization type intervention that changed the dynamic for those homeowners who may not have been at the highest income levels. And so I think all of your insights are correct. It's a general ratio proportion of just lower incomes. Obviously, the energy burden is going to be higher, but could it also be that they're living in cheaper housing that was perhaps affordable housing, or private housing that somehow wasn't built, at a more insulated level, and so therefore their consumption of overall energy is higher. So the further investigation on that data points would help you drive that decision making about where do you want us to put some programs around that. Does the town have a weatherization program now?
We've done some weatherization stuff in the past. One of the dynamics that we face is that most of these people in this category are renting. And so you have a landlord involved. And so do we go in and put brand new windows in some landlord's home for them for free? That becomes a sticky subject. And we can do some weatherization, but trying to get the landlords to do improvements when they aren't paying the electric bill or the energy bills themselves, are pushing it onto their tenants. That's what I think is the dynamic. That's why I think the battery thing in Excel, doing it, maybe the landlord wouldn't care because it didn't cost them anything. It improves it would improve the ability for the tenant to control when they purchase. A lot of it is that you're purchasing during peak hours. You're paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour instead of 5. So there's a big difference on how you can buy it.
Yeah. So just in this conversation alone, can you all see how just a baseline data set that comes from authoritative source is provoking a conversation around what more data might we collect, or another indicator that would give us better information to make some decisions here? And what are you already doing as a town, and what might you do in the future? And as Garrett said at the outset, the outcome of all of this will be, of all these data points, which ones are high priority that you all want to focus on, if not this year, then over the next 2 to 3 years, and then measure your performance again after those great interventions and say to yourselves, wow, look at where we've come from. We've reduced in 5 years' time the energy burden on the lowest income folks in the town of Nederland. So that's really the goal, is how do you have baseline data that drives action that improves that performance over time. And it'll help your carbon emissions as well. If the weatherization programs are effective and save energy overall, it'll also have a double effect on reducing carbon.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. Unfortunately, we do need to move on to our next agenda item, but thank you for taking the time to demonstrate the tool.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Folks,
thanks.
we should be finished by the end of April with some cleaned up recommendations and data points throughout. So I hope it proves to be useful, and you can use it not only for your decision making, but possibly to complement all of the other planning documents that you're using within the town. And so those are some of the next steps to think about where it fits in.
Very useful, Linda.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to cut out now and let you get back to your agenda. Okay, Garrett, thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing on the agenda is the Envision 2030 update. So Karen.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Karen.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay. So you all should have received this document as a link in the email that I sent. And what I'd like to go over today are is a vision statement, the themes, the goals, and objectives. And we'll be giving that to the Board of Trustees for their first meeting in April for them to review. and then it will go to all the advisory boards and the community during the month of April. While that's being reviewed, the subcommittee will be working on initiatives and projects, defining these along with the metrics. And then that will come back to the various boards in the community for review. So in order to create this plan, we looked at a lot of different resources, and they're all shown in the references, including the Envision 2030 survey results. And what I did here was I collated the results, the responses that were related to environmental sustainability, parks, recreation, and open space, because I'm on the Parks, Rec, and Open Space subcommittee as well. And there's two different categories here. The first set are things that we have the community values. And these surveys were from the community, from the advisory boards, from the board of trustees, from the staff, and external organizations. So these are the things that are valued in that first part. And then the second part are the needs, challenges that we currently have, things that the community would like to see in the future. So I categorized these, and you can see the category in the far left column, the actual value in the middle column, and the count is the number of mentions for that particular value. So I just wanted to point out one item in the values that we currently have, and then one category in needs and challenges and visions. So the highest mentioned item was the natural environment in and surrounding the town, the natural resources, forests, and wildlife. So this is a strong indicator that the community values our environment. So being able to sustain that, it would be something important for the community. Okay, and then in the next section, under the things that the community would like to have that we don't currently have, there's one category that I wanted to highlight, and that is transportation. And here we can see 9 mentions for a parking garage, 9 for improved public transportation. This is to get kids to recreation sites after school, to get elderly and other people who live on the peak-to-peak north-south route, to get them to and from places. And then there was 11 mentions on traffic and congestion, and 9 for the parking garage. So with all this data and research, and with Garrett reviewing this document for us, we came up with the vision statement. And the really high level part of that is we'd like to be a model community for environmental sustainability. In order to do that, we feel the community needs to be knowledgeable about how our everyday decisions impact the earth. We take action to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change. And then we're dedicated to conserve, preserve, protect, and restore our environment to foster a sustainable future that leads to social and economic improvements in our community. And we looked at the themes for environmental sustainability, and we have 8, and these can be mapped on to the areas that were shown in that last presentation. So they are climate, ecological health, economy, energy and buildings, local food and agriculture, transportation, water, and zero waste. For each of those themes, we have a high-level goal followed by more specific objectives. And ideally, these objectives would be measurable by the metrics listed in the next section, and then the projects and initiatives are the ways that these objectives are achieved. So for the climate goal, the climate goal is to achieve carbon neutrality. Having equalizing the amount of carbon that we generate and the amount of carbon that is sequestered, and become more resilient to the effects of climate change. I'm thinking I won't read through all these objectives, but I'll give everyone some time to read the first set and answer any questions on those. So each one of these goals has an education component to it. That's the last bullet, the last objective for each goal. Do we have any questions on the first one? Comments, suggestions?
I would just make
Okay,
a
I'll move
comment.
on.
They look good and they fit in with things that SAB has been working on.
Okay, great. The next one is ecological health. So this is all about the natural environment. The goal is to preserve and restore healthy and vibrant ecosystems for all the inhabitants. I'll move on to the next one, which is the economy. And here we're looking at ways that the economy can support the environment. And the goal is to support a diverse local economy that encourages green businesses and business practices. So by having a local economy and a diverse one, we have less need for purchasing things outside of the local area. Then the energy and buildings goal. Foster building practices that encourage energy and water efficiency while supporting building electrification. Oh, we might want to change this wording, while moving away from natural gas. Yes, I'll work on rewording that. The general gist of it will stay the same. The next goal has to do with food, local food and agriculture. We support local food production and encourage sustainable agricultural practices on publicly owned and private lands. The transportation goal is to promote the use of alternative transportation and fuel-efficient vehicles in order to decrease emissions while maintaining or expanding mobility for town residents, employees, and visitors. The very last bullet is something Chris Pelletier asked for, and it's not directly related to environmental sustainability, but I guess it's good to make sure that we're providing transportation for all sectors of the community. So I think that was a good addition. Water goal is to preserve the natural environment in our watershed and provide a reliable, high-quality water supply that protects public health. Very last one is zero waste. Reduce landfill waste while finding ways to reuse, recycle, and compost discarded materials. So that's all I have to present. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any suggestions for changes.
You said the part about connecting the schools with sidewalks, I was in favor of that for the high school, but somehow that became a very big hot topic in town.
Because of the surface.
Alan, maybe you have the history on that, but I remember it only went out. It was supposed to go all the way to the high school, and that got canned at the last, as soon as it made it to the turnoff.
I don't recall that debate. Does anybody else remember?
You know that sidewalk that goes out along the road as it exits down towards Eldora. Initially, that was supposed to go to the high school. But
I didn't know that. That would have been a good idea.
Yeah, well, and that was the idea, and that was sort of what this idea is here. But as I recall, it got canceled as soon as it made it to the turnoff there. I'm not sure
Maybe
what the issues were.
maybe it was a money issue. I don't know.
Yeah,
we have before my time on the board.
No,
well, someone might want to ask Kathleen Chipeye. She probably knows the reason.
Yeah, so we added these constraints because we don't have an unlimited funding source, and we need to balance this with affordability and community pushback. And then there's positive effects of environmental sustainability is economic vitality, cleaner air and water, improved soil health, resilience to wildfires and climate change, improved forest and ecosystem health, and improve the quality of life for future residents.
Yeah, I think it's a very impressive set of goals, and you've done a lot of really good work. And I think it very much overlaps with what SAB and the town board have been trying to do. And then I think it becomes a question of, is there any low-hanging fruit, or there's some projects we can latch onto that help further some of these goals,
Well,
where we can maybe put some funding behind them.
Yeah, here are the projects we've come up with so far.
Which one is that, Karen?
Initiatives and projects, that section. There.
Under general?
Yeah, general, climate, there's projects under each one. Let's see if there's anything of particular interest here.
I think the town has been striving to integrate in sustainability, and Chris Pelletier's done a wonderful job with that in his department.
Mm-hmm. There's one idea here that it's from something that Longmont does. They have a sustainable business recognition program to recognize.
Yeah, you know, we have talked about that for years, but it's never gotten off the ground. And I think it's something we'd have to partner with DDA on NDDA and see if we could get some interest there. But they had a program like that in Fort Collins, which was very successful.
Yeah, I can go on the business website, right on the first page.
Lafayette has one as well. Boulder County's PACE services, obviously, they do a lot of this stuff too.
Unfortunately, NDDA we're looking for a director right now. But I think if we could figure out a mechanism to get this on their agenda and discuss it, that would be a
Matt Hannon did attend January's meeting with the NDDA, and there is a point of contact for me. So whenever I see something, I can send that information over to the NDDA via this contact. That's about as far as that conversation went, but at least they are aware of PACE's services.
Yeah, back when we were promoting Excel's renewable energy program that was not additional cost, the business community responded very positively, and most of them signed up for that program. But we didn't recognize that. We probably could have. But that's one example where they really stepped up and were willing to be more environmental.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are businesses doing things. I think the SAB could probably market that a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, it's those projects I think are few and far between, but there is some participation. But I think it's just getting that information from the county and then putting that on our website or something like that.
Yeah, I think some of the restaurants are using compostable materials, for example.
Right.
For to-go boxes.
Well, here's another project that may be interesting is investigating the feasibility of a town shuttle. and doing a transportation study to characterize the current transportation patterns.
Yeah, it should be an electric shuttle, by the way, with our electric charging new capabilities. Double down on a couple of these goals.
So I understand a town shuttle is something that the DDA has worked on in the past, that there was a grant was received, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. I was talking to someone who used to be on the DDA, and he was discussing that.
There was a what?
A grant for a town shuttle. DDA grant? No?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before.
I don't want to start a rumor. Maybe not. Yeah. Okay, well.
So Karen, before you leave, can you talk about next steps and
sure.
How might these ideas here that you're showing right now, how might these get more formalized and put on some sort of work plan?
Well, first off, the vision, goals, and objectives will be vetted by the community, and that'll happen in April. And during that time, we'll come up with finalize the draft initiatives and projects. The whole Envision, I believe, will be finished in June. I think that's when we have the strategic plan done, which is basically this document, a final version of this document. Now, I suppose what we could do is we could prioritize projects and put timeframes on them. Maybe also prioritize the objectives. Yeah, I think that will be a joint effort with the subcommittee and with SAB and BOT and other groups that are involved, like Public Works.
Well, certainly a goal we've kicked around for many months is renewable energy for low-income people and making progress on our 100% renewable goal by 2025. And that seems to me like something we have a lot of agreement on as a good target.
Yeah,
and
I think
it accomplishes two things. It helps low-income people and it helps reduce our energy usage and substitute renewable energy for it.
Okay, let me get that up here.
Hey, I had a question. In these goals, anywhere is there that we want to help low-income people and that kind of thing?
Okay,
goals?
Under energy and building, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th goal, support low-income populations with subsidies for energy and water efficiency and renewable energy. And there is another one, let's see, under local food and agriculture, increase accessibility, and maybe maybe I could look at adding support for lower income, marginalized, vulnerable populations to each one of these goals. Is that something you'd like to see?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
I would.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I agree. It just helps become more attainable for everybody.
Now, as far as that 100% renewable electric energy. We have down here for the first bullet under energy and buildings to create a plan to achieve that. And we talked about so reinvestigating the feasibility of a community solar garden. We talked about putting that, having it be more distributed, and because there's not a lot of public land available that would work, is my understanding, and to consider the old town shop site, especially since there's the ground needs to be cleaned up there, and maybe, you know, that would be an appropriate place, and potentially to putting solar panels on municipal buildings.
Yeah, we have kicked that idea around, but we haven't finalized anything. And, you know, Dave has, at the county level, has this low-income solar garden project that's in the works. Dave, do you have any updates on that?
Right. Yeah, no, thank you, Alan. It is Belmont XL low-income solar garden is still going on, and it's right now, it's slated, the goal is, we had hoped that the goal would be to have that operational by the first of the year. Right now, we're seeing April 19th it's being the goal. And in regards to currently how many Netherlands residents have been identified through their application for energy assistance through Energy Outreach Colorado. I was looking at those numbers, and that it's about 8 right now. And so we'll certainly need to figure out ways both either to drive new potential subscribers to it, because for these lower income residents who do qualify, what it's going to mean to them, other than having access to clean energy through a solar garden subscription, is our goal with additional county funding is to provide about a 40% electric bill savings annually. Which, you know, certainly when you look back on that graph on of you know, energy burden broken out by area median income, that's going to have a huge impact on that, you know, 0 to 30%, or actually looking at that graph, 0 to 60% area median income group.
So there are only eight people right now that qualify?
Eight people that Energy Outreach has identified, trying to get a hold of and getting them subscribed in the solar garden.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And right now, what we're looking to as a county being able to fund is, it's going to be about, well, between us and City of Boulder funding, we're looking at roughly 300 subscriptions for every place elsewhere in Boulder County other than Boulder and Longmont. We're having to exclude Longmont residents just because they're not XL electric customers.
Mm-hmm.
Thus aren't eligible.
Okay.
But,
So real quick, what's your 30-second pitch to people on how they're saving money?
through this subscription to the community solar garden, they will see an automatic off their bill credit that will equate to, on average, and it is on average, a 40% electric bill savings, which we're right now, Energy Outreach is calculating that to be about $370 a year.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We just can't get a hold of people. We have obviously a lot of people who are spending 30% of their income on energy.
Yeah.
And I wrote a letter to the editor and for the Mountaineer, and also posted it on Facebook, hoping to get more people to apply, and it didn't happen. So unless some of the 8 were the
Right.
result, but I think there were more than that previously. So
And-
I don't think we're reaching those people that are potentially eligible.
And you hit the nail on the head right there, Alan. In terms of when we were looking at Linda and Shannon's sustainability indicators. I mean, there's a number of resources and programs to help, to provide assistance on a number of those categories. It's I think the big hurdle is, how do you engage people? How do you engage, as Garrett was saying, PACE, Boulder County's PACE Partners has a green business program and a green business recognition certification that it's already there for y'all to use, and thus there's no need to replicate things, but it's how do we, drive participants either to that or towards weatherization assistance programs that are already there, already funded by the federal government, the county, the state. That's the bit, to me, is the biggest hurdle, just
Yeah.
because, we've built it, folks aren't necessarily always coming.
Yeah, we talked to Excel about, could we get anything in their utility bill to alert them, and they said, oh, it would take them at least 3 months. And that would be the best case scenario. And the town water bill only goes out quarterly. So I don't know when maybe we should put.
So Dave, when is this going to affect the solar garden? When can some people sign up?
Well, so right now, Energy Outreach is already waitlisting folks, but the Belmont Solar Garden, which is a 4 megawatt solar garden that's going to provide about 650 to 750 individual subscriptions, is slated to be operational by third week of April.
Okay, and how does that work? Are they buying their energy at a set rate or something?
So XL owns the solar garden, and apart from that, what they've done is that they've committed to providing through that solar garden utility bill savings of about 17%. We at Boulder County have identified additional funds to be able to up that savings for our residents to 23%. And so total there'll be a 40% bill savings. Now this solar garden is, while there's 650 to 750 individual subscriptions, it's available to qualifying residents within a 6-county area. But what we're doing, since we're putting money up on the table, putting skin in the game, so to speak, is we're trying, between us and the city of Boulder, we're trying to capture about 400 of that available subscriptions or capacity.
And what's the income level requirements?
185% poverty level, which I know, so how much is that? It's pretty low. I think I'm gonna guess right now it's about 23,000 per single. Might even be a tad lower, but you can you know, Google federal poverty levels.
Are you working with our peak-to-peak human services organization? Because
You
they,
know, I haven't, Karen. I I would love to. I would love to engage with them because so there's that program and that's for solar. But in regards to other you know, other resources that we've got that are available to folks who are having a hard go of things is there's the federal weatherization assistance program that does energy efficiency retrofits that at no cost. And then what we're also doing at the county is we're again partnering with Energy Outreach Colorado to provide similar type of weatherization services for folks up to, and this is where it gets confusing, up to about the 80% area median income. And, you know, area median income and federal poverty levels, there's intersections there, but I can't recall.
We should also could do outreach through the community food bank on Saturdays when they pass out their food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we could have flyers there, that would be like
Right.
potentially
Put
ideal.
it in with the food, you know.
Yeah.
Just have it be one of the things that they get.
Right.
To sign up for the solar garden for the savings and stuff. Something very easy someone could do is even if they're a tenant and they're paying an electric.
Yeah, well, what I think the easiest, best thing that my suggestion would be is for anyone who is looking for any type of energy assistance, would probably drive them through Energy Outreach Colorado, which is the low-income energy assistance nonprofit in the state. And from there, we can start delegating them or you know, contact the Energy Smart program, our program at the county. And then from there, we'll help them get the services they need. Again, for that low-income solar garden, likely at this point, if somebody was to apply, send in an application, they would be waitlisted for right now.
Does anybody know who manages the community food bank? Who can I get in touch with, and I can coordinate with Energy Outreach Colorado?
Yeah, Chris Current, I mean, is the main person up there running everything. And typically when I bring something for the farmers market, they want like 50 copies of a flyer or something so they can easily, like Reed was saying, just put one in each box and send people on their way.
Melody, could you send me his contact info?
Her, yes.
Or her? Okay. Awesome.
And Garrett, I've got some electronic flyers that are energy outreaches that I can send you too. Now, obviously, somehow we'll have to get them printed or ask EOC to send you some hard copies to be able to put in folks' grocery bags. But I think between you and I, we can make that happen.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just forwarding those to me.
Okay.
Garrett, thank you so much, and everyone on staff for letting me do that presentation. And if anyone comes up with any questions or comments, you can just email
Thank you, Karen.
them to me.
Thanks, Karen. Will you be? I think it would be great to touch base again with you coming to SAB maybe after April, after you get that community input. Would you be willing to come back and do another short presentation?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, and I'm going to stay listening to the rest of your meeting.
Alrighty.
Alrighty, bye.
All right. I think the next one is a quick Solarize update. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. So we have selected Custom Solar to be the solar installer for the Solarize Nederland program. We received responses to our two responses to our RFP one from Sunrun, and the other was Custom Solar. Sunrun just, you know, it's the largest solar installer in the country. They just weren't a good fit. They didn't want to provide a tier rebate. They just wanted to provide a flat $500 discount on all residential solar. They couldn't do commercial solar installs. They couldn't do ground mount. Custom Solar is a local Boulder solar installer, and they really met all of our needs. They provide a price. I don't have that right in front of me, but it's a great price for folks looking at going solar. And so as far as next steps go, I'll be scheduling a kickoff meeting with Custom Solar probably next week. So we'll be looking at the timeline, figuring out sort of the details of you know, how we get customers signed up to go solar. There'll be stuff that I have to do. There'll be things that they do, like walkthroughs and stuff. We're gonna get I need to touch base with Miranda on the website. Now that we have cost information, Miranda, maybe we can chat next week sometime about how we get the website off the ground so we could start driving people to the website.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
I'd like to go ahead.
You know, I was working on the battery stuff,
Yep.
and I am still working on it. I've got a little update I'll give you guys later, but I found a company called Real Good Solar. They're out of California, and what they do is they're a distributor to do-it-yourselfers. So like a homeowner could buy a battery, and they have technical salespeople that can help you, that you could add into a solar system. So if Custom Solar is doing a solar system, I also saw that on the federal tax rebate, there's a 26% federal incentive that's happening right now. We're at that level to put solar on, and it does. You can with a letter apparently get that 26% discount on a battery if you're doing solar at the same time. So I just wanted to kind of give you a tie-in to my current research.
How much are the batteries going for, Reed?
I haven't gotten there yet. The only thing I had else to say about the batteries is that I'm working with one residential person, seeing the feasibility of putting a battery in their house, and then the co-op for both time of day billing, savings, and also power outage issues. The co-op has a major issue, power outages, because they have food spoilage if their freezers go down. Yeah. And so there's maybe a need for that as a community, for them, for like a community resource.
Yeah, last I heard, Tesla's battery was going for 7,000 or 8,000.
Yeah, it's 7,500 for one power wall, and then you stack them. But a Real Good Solar sells, like, they carry like 12 different brands of batteries, and they have like a telephone that someone answers, a person in a technical sales department that'll help you figure it out as an individual. So I think they'd be a very good fit to combine with the efforts with Custom Solar.
Yeah, sounds good.
Tie their systems in.
Yeah.
Custom might have their own offer on a battery, and that way too. But at least this way, we have a third party giving you all competitive bids and whatnot.
Yeah, no, we haven't. I don't know. I don't think Custom Solar included any sort of cost for batteries, or like all of that is sort of was not mandatory to include in an RFP.
Right,
so I think there's definitely some room that, you know, for some collaboration there.
Well, I was really excited to find this resource because they will sell to an individual directly, and they have anything from a off-grid camping backup plug-in thing all the way up to big, you know, $50,000 commercial batteries. And the thing, you know, the batteries provide better quality electricity, as well as the ability to have control over your power, and when and you do and don't, buy energy, and when you can and can't sell energy back into the grid, that's becomes an option. So there's real power in having a battery. It's kind of a key element.
Cool. Well, and I know you mentioned Excel's battery program. I've heard of that as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend their webinar yesterday on that program. Maybe it's recorded, so I can go look to see. And if I find it, I'll send to you. But there is a pilot program that Excel is offering folks to basically opt in to provide their own battery. It is a pilot, and I think there is a maximum participation. So I don't know if they've reached their maximum yet, but I can do some more research and send that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's such a benefit for them as well. It's a win-win scenario, because they have a hard time providing power to us here at the end of the pipe.
Sounds good. Well, Garrett, once you get the cost data together, we should take it to the BOT.
Yes, I'll send that. I'll send it to you. I have it all, Alan. So I will send you the cost information.
Okay, I'll forward it to the BOT, and then we could start a discussion about, do we want to try to have some subsidies for people who are going to go solar, from the town.
Right.
Hey, Garrett.
Federal, state, and then maybe we can, if we have funds at the local level, we can help out. Remains to be seen.
Cool. Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, Garrett, is custom offering volume discounts? And so there'll be a greater discount that the more installations they're doing?
Yep, there's a rebate where so the first 50 kilowatts that we add to the grid is a certain price, and then it moves down, I think, 15 cents per watt from anything over 50 kilowatt. And I think we have to get to like 150 kilowatt before we reach their third tiered rebate. There's also different prices based on the size of the system you're installing. So there's a couple different discounts there.
Are there any stipulations about being able to offer this Solarize program to folks outside of town and Nederland boundaries?
We have, yes, we've said that it's going to be the zip code.
Okay.
So it's going to expand outside of the town. I believe that's the library district.
Got it. All right. So
that's
some
really
folks
good.
in Ward, for instance, wouldn't be eligible to participate?
So, but I think if the county wanted to do this, I think Solar Energy International would be happy to partner with the county to offer this sort of program to Gold Hill, Ward, Jamestown, all these other mountain communities.
Right. Yeah.
There was just, David, it was just too much for me and the SAB to manage. If you're including Ward, all these other communities, because there's a sizable amount of work that the SAB has to do, which benefits Custom Solar and keeps the price down. We're going to be doing lots of marketing, lots of hand-holding folks to get them to sign up. And so when you bring on additional communities, that's just a lot of work for one volunteer group.
Yeah, for sure. I completely understand that point.
Cool. So the launch event is April 25th at Wild Bear, Custom Solar, myself. Hopefully some of you all will be there. And it's I think at 1 o'clock. There's a number of other presentations happening on that same day, but we're going to be there for an hour talking about Solarize, hopefully getting people signed up and excited about going solar.
Yeah, let's get some publicity out ahead of time and get some momentum.
Yep. So we're going to be working on the website, pointing folks there. I'm working on marketing materials. You know, Laura's got all those signs that were made by the elementary school. I need to coordinate with her, pick those up. We're going to start printing those, you know, hanging them in different areas of the town. So you should be seeing this pop up more now that we have a you know, a company in place and we have an idea of how much it's going to cost and that sort of thing.
Yeah, good job on finding the ideal vendor.
Yeah, they were really happy that we selected them. I'm really happy that we found Custom Solar. They seem like an excellent partner. They've actually done similar programs in Boulder County, a couple of different like neighborhood campaigns to get neighbors to sign up for solar. So they're sort of used to this like grassroots approach and educational aspect. So it should be a great partnership.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey,
I don't know.
Alan, to follow up on your comment on the Tesla Powerwall, I also wanted to let you know that you can't buy a Tesla Powerwall unless you also buy their solar array.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, I found that out. I went on there. You order it online, but they won't even sell it to you unless you buy their solar too.
Huh. That's a pretty major catch. I'll look forward to getting information about the company you found.
Yeah,
Melody, do you have anything to add on the Solarize update?
I don't. I think I'm definitely looking forward to working with Custom Solar. They seemed really knowledgeable in their interview. They seemed really excited to explain renewable energy to customers and the incentives of going solar and all the benefits that you can get from that. And they also seemed like they were really experienced in working with unique projects and having to deal with different add-ons, you know, especially when we're looking at low-income people and how insulated is their house and how is their roof doing and all those kinds of things. I think it's nice to have somebody that's experienced in that kind of mountain unique situation.
Great.
Awesome. So if there's no other questions, we'll move to the CC4CA. I believe that's the next agenda item. I sent everyone the CC4CA policy. I don't know if you want to talk about this agenda item.
You know,
But
it's a big policy agenda, and I've been pretty impressed with it overall, and didn't see any room for improvement. We did do some fine tuning on a couple of the items, such as making sure that communities supporting legislation that would allow communities to potentially study and then buy their own renewable energy. So that was one item that I lobbied on, and they're on board with that. But most of the rest of the stuff seemed like it fit pretty well with what we would like to do as a community and what we'd like to see happening at the state level. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions?
This is Melody. I thought everything was great. I, like you, was really impressed with how many different kind of specific issues were tackled in that policy statement. And I'd be super impressed if we got movement on all of those things. I expect, you know, as the way the legislative cycle goes, we'll get some of those things and others, you know, won't be tackled in 2021. But I was, yeah, definitely impressed and in agreement with everything.
Good. Yeah, there has been some progress in some of those goals in terms of the way that greenhouse gas emissions are going to be calculated by, you know, the state, and putting a lot of pressure on the oil and gas industry to do a better job with methane emissions in a variety of areas. So I think there has already been some progress, and I think they want to continue to put pressure on the state and the oil and gas industry and the transportation sector to get greener and do a better job of greenhouse gas reductions. Okay, well, thanks, Melody. And you're always welcome to, bring anything forward you'd like me to bring up with that group, Colorado Communities for Climate Action. There are 35 communities involved. And I think they have some pretty good clout with the legislature and are in close contact with a lot of the key legislators from Boulder County and Denver.
Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we need the SAB to make a motion to adopt the policy in order to bring it to the Board of Trustees.
Correct.
All right, I make a motion to approve the CC4CA policy statement and recommend the BOT approve it.
Second.
All in favor? I guess, should I read off names? Alan,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Alvin,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
me, yes. I think I got all the SAB members on here. Yeah, all right. That is approved.
Great, thank you.
And so we can move on to the last thing on the agenda, which is building code.
It's Miranda. I'm presenting this with Rick, and we have a PowerPoint. Normally this takes about 30 minutes, but I think he and I can be fast and efficient. And some of you may have already seen this.
I have already seen it, so I'm going to bail out.
Okay. And it's coming back to you anyways, Alan, on April 6th.
Take care, Alan.
All right. So we just wanted to do a quick presentation about the 2018 International Building Code, which is something we are considering adopting. Currently, the town adheres to 2012 Building Code, and I know we've talked briefly about this, but what we're going to do tonight is just go over some of the changes in the 2018 Building Code, some of the major changes. There's 15 books in total. We are looking at all 15 either as a full adoption or a partial adoption. So one of the first changes is that there is an independent book for pools and spas. Before, that language was incorporated into other code books, but it is now its own separate one. So we are recommending adopting that in its entirety. There's been some changes with regards to wind speed. So, and really how wind speed is calculated. Originally, a wind speed was based on a 3-second gust, but it's now been changed to an ultimate wind speed. And we are in climate zone 7, where Nederland was 130 miles per hour, but it's now increased based on this 100-year occurrence to 144 miles per hour. Here's another map to show you that actually shows for the 700-year occurrence, we're looking at 168 miles per hour. And then Boulder County did their own assessment, and for our zone, they're actually saying we're at 175 miles per hour. So given these different speeds, we're really looking to Safe Built, who's our building official, to provide a recommendation. And they're stating that we should focus on 144 miles per hour, mainly because we're currently at 130. So a jump to 144 makes it easier for builders to purchase those materials. Trying to find building material for 175 is very challenging, and we're trying to keep cost in mind. So 144 is not a big change for contract. There's also been a change in stud height. Before, stud height didn't exceed 10 feet. which really limited contractors from doing those really tall, beautiful ceilings that a lot of people want. What's great about the International Residential Code, though, is really they made it with the homeowner in mind, and it's really user-friendly and a lot easier to read the tables. So that's a great improvement for that code book. As we all know, log homes are often a priority for our area. The new code allows log homes to meet the requirement for the thermal envelope, which ultimately just makes those log homes more energy efficient. In addition to the 15 code books, all the books have appendices. And if you adopt a code book, it doesn't mean you're adopting the appendices. You really need to go through and identify which additional ones you want to incorporate. So currently we're working with town staff and Garrett to figure out which appendices make sense to adopt. But right now in this slide here is what SafeBuilt has identified is their recommendation for those appendices. And the link here is where you would access those if you wanted to read more. One thing that didn't change is ADUs. So for accessory structures, currently you did not need a permit for anything under 200 square feet. And that remains the same, which is great for kind of consistency from year to year. Town code currently excludes relocating structures that are less than 120 square feet. The recommendation is to change that to 200 square feet in order to align ourselves with the International Building Code and the International Residential Code. We have a chart here for insulation, and as you can see, the only change in insulation is for the above grade wall. It's that final, the bottom square on the left-hand side. That first number is the interior thermal envelope, and then the +5 accounts for the shear wall. An R20 insulation is common for 2x6 walls, where an R13 is common for 2x4 walls, which is why you have that separate set of numbers, the 13 + 10, that's for your 2x4 walls. And these next two slides I'll just go over quickly are examples of what that insulation looks like. So in this slide, you'll see you've got your R15 and then all the way up to the R49. And this slide shows your continuous versus your cavity insulation. So you can see what that difference looks like. Window U factors haven't changed much. Skylight hasn't changed at all. The window U factor has decreased by 0.02. And the lower the number, the more energy efficient the windows are. So 0.30 is ideal. Most windows, though, are 0.27, and you would see that on the sticker that comes on your window. So by doing a requirement of 0.30, the kind of the average window is going to meet that from an energy performance rating standpoint. There's also a dedicated chapter in the International Residential Code for PV systems, which obviously we know based on our conversations tonight that there really is an increase, or at least a desire to increase these systems. And luckily, SafeBuilt is really knowledgeable about PV systems and can help both the committee here as well as the community as we work on trying to get more installed in our residential and commercial buildings. I'm just going to quickly go over this slide, and then maybe when we're done, Garrett, if you want to give more information after Rick does his part. But from an energy savings or cost standpoint, there really is no change from 12 to 18. Now, that being said, we have identified that Boulder County has stricter energy conservation codes, and in essence did not adopt 2018 code, but rather rewrote it in its entirety. So Garrett's working on a comparison between the International Energy Conservation Code and Boulder County's to determine what town should consider. There is a possibility to adopt the International Energy Conservation Code and then make a series of amendments to maybe match some of those requirements that Boulder County has in place. You all are probably familiar with the C&D program, construction and demolition. been in play for a while, but we've decided it really needs a facelift. It's not as effective as we are looking for it to be with regards to recycling on-site debris and diverting the materials from local landfills. So what we're doing is working with Garrett to kind of give a facelift to a lot of these documents, help people to understand the program, do some flow charts, more outreach efforts, so that when people are engaging in building, they know that there's really a benefit in doing some of these diversion efforts. So more to come on that. And I'm going to turn it over to Rick to do his recap of fire code.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't met a lot of you folks, so I'm going to put my camera on for a little bit here, just so you can at least see who I am. As Miranda mentioned, there's a bunch of different books, and one of them is the fire code. From the fire department perspective, we're looking at a couple of changes in the fire code or amendments, also with the building and residential code. But first on the fire code, some things that have changed in the 18 code that that are going to affect town a little bit, mostly positively, I think. First one here is a new chapter on food preparation vehicles, food trucks. We're asked to inspect those, but we haven't really had a standard for that. So that's in the code now. So we will have that for safety. In Chapter 9, there's a new section that allows water mist fire suppression systems, which are a newer, higher tech version than fire sprinklers. They are, at this point, they're a little more expensive in a new construction setting, but in a remodel, they would probably ultimately be cheaper, just because of they're easier to retrofit into an existing building. One of probably the only impact we've found in the 18 code that'll cost somebody more money is in Chapter 11. They're requiring excuse me, CO detection in daycares and schools. The buildings that we have that this is going to be affected by are our smaller daycares. There's only a couple of them, and they can just get by with one of the plug-in CO detectors. They don't need to put in a full alarm system and everything else. The schools will come a little later, and they will have to put in a little bit bigger system, but they're under a different set of codes because they're still under state control, I guess. Other than us, here is Chapter 12. All of the energy information into one chapter. So solar systems, battery systems, all of those sort of things went into one chapter. It used to be scattered throughout the code. This is going to allow us to have one-stop shopping. It's easier for joint. It's also easier for builders. They just have to go one place to look for everything. Also new is a new chapter on processing and extraction facility. That's how that affects us, is going to be marijuana extraction. Currently, we don't have anybody in town that we're aware of anyway that's doing commercial extraction using flammable liquids. We have one operation in town that is doing extraction, but they're not using flammable liquids, so this section doesn't apply to them. But certainly in the future, we could have that occur. So next slide, please, Brandon. There we go. So the amendments we're looking for are three things. One is to put residential fire suppression systems back into the code. It's actually in the residential code, and when the 2012 codes were adopted, it got amended out. It's really part of a whole system that we know house construction getting lighter, and sprinklers were part of a safety because of that, but then many places opted out of that. We'd like to get that back in. These are life safety systems primarily. Most of the time they put the fire out, which is great. We saw that on Alpine Drive. That house did have a fire sprinkler system in it. It put out the fire almost immediately. Limited damage, limited injury. Very successful use of a system there. Other thing we're looking for is exterior fire resistance and required defense base. As we know, our whole town is wildland urban interface. Every building in town is at risk from fire, some more than others, but we all are. We've seen the fires in the last couple of years, and they're getting bigger, they're getting worse. And we want to make sure we're protecting the buildings that we can. The third thing is a new chapter we want to steal out of the 21 code, which is storage of distilled spirits and wines. We have had a couple people request information on what it would take to convert some of the existing buildings to a micro distillery. This would help give us guidance on how to do that. Right now, and it's scattered all throughout the different codes. This brings it into one spot. So we're going to go into a little more detail on these. So go to the next slide. And this is really the big one for us, the residential fire suppression systems. They've got just amazing numbers for saving lives, saving injuries, preventing damage to houses. And I get from a sustainable standpoint, a house you only have to build once is far more sustainable than one you have to build again. So we'd really like to see these in. There's some good information there. There is a link to a big document for some more information. I think you all have this PowerPoint, so you can take a look at that if you'd like to. Next slide. And this is a short video. It's not working on this player, so you'll have to look at this. It's only, I think, 90 seconds long, but it just gives you a lot of good information on fire sprinklers. So next. Okay, and wildfire resistance or ignition resistant construction. I think most everybody's aware of this around here because this has been talked about for years up here. Our current code does require ignition resistant construction, but only if you're close to the property line. If you build your house back further from the property line beyond 20 feet, this isn't required at all. And I think we've all seen from the fires recently that, yeah, with the ember storms and the way the fires are moving, they don't really care if your house is 2 feet or 40 feet from a property line. And that actually goes back to some really old studies, actually from the 1800s, and what they do with commercial buildings, where in a city with a big fire department and you can count on them coming quickly, having that distance to property line makes a big difference. It's not working that way in a wildland situation. So I think most people know these different things like hardy board or some other kind of siding that's ignition resistance, good roofs, which we are already requiring the highest level of that. Most people up here have good windows because it's cold and they want energy efficiency. So most people are already doing that sort of things with new houses. So, all right, let's go on to the next one. And this is a survey done by Headwaters Economic last couple of years here, looked at cost of a typical home versus a wildfire resistant. I think we all know around here you can't build a house for those numbers they're showing there, but maybe on a nationwide average, that's a little more realistic. The big difference there is roofs are more expensive, but like I said, we're already requiring that. Siding is less expensive, and I'll explain that in the next slide when we look at some costs of typical construction materials. So, and this just gives you a ballpark numbers and to look at there. So, next slide. So I talked to a bunch of builders in town about the cost to build different things and see how we really fared in this. Looking at siding there in the first column, basic wood, nothing fancy, not ignition resistant. Looking about $4 a square foot. Cheap wood, press board kind of stuff is about $3 a square foot. You can get the hardy, which is ignition resistant, for around the same. If you're going to up to stucco, it's at least $3 a square foot. And if you're going to get into stone or metal or something like that, then it goes up pretty high from there. But if that's a look you want, like a lot of things, we all want things that maybe aren't the basic, but we're willing to pay for them. Decks, I found a lot of variety in depending on which builders I was talking to. I think it's just based on efficiency of their crews and how they work. Also, decks really vary by how tall they are, what kind of support structure is needed underneath them, and how big they are. So, but a basic wood deck, not ignition resistant, is going to come to $25 to $30 a square foot to put in. Using the composite plastic and wood, things like Trex, those are ignition resistant. You're up to $30 to $40 a square foot. And if you really want wood and in the ignition resistant, you're looking at something like Ipe, something like that, you're up to $50 a square foot for that. So that gets pretty pricey. Again, if that's what you want and you're willing to pay for it, it's available. Probably the biggest thing that people talk about as far as cost is fire sprinklers. And a typical National Fire Protection Association 13D spec system. On a fairly basic home up here, they're going in for $5 to $6 a square foot. Over most of what we're seeing, because the county already requires this, so all the houses that are going in the unincorporated parts of our district are getting sprinkler systems. They are costing a few bucks more than that for a couple reasons. One, the houses tend to be a little more uniquely designed, if you will. Lots of big vaulted ceilings, fun angles, and things like that. That costs more to put a system in. We've seen places where they've had to go rent a lift to get up 20, 30 feet up into a vaulted ceiling to put in sprinkler pipes, and that adds a lot to the cost. The other thing, just generically up here, costs more because there's nobody up here locally that puts in these systems. So everybody's coming up from below to do it. Also, because of our climate, almost all these systems have to be antifreeze up here unless they're really well designed and have a lot of insulation. And that is going to cost more for that, for the antifreeze. And then, like I said, most of the houses going in these days up here are not very basic, and it does cost more to put those systems in. So let's see. I think that's my last slide, is it? So that was kind of the quick run through, and now it's back to Miranda.
Yeah, and so normally Cynthia and Karen would be here to review these. I'm just going to run through them fast. Obviously, affordable housing is a concern as we look at a change in building code. The question is, does it align with our affordable housing goals? So Cynthia took the time to really look at the initiatives and ordinances that have gone through to date related to affordable housing, and we briefly highlight them here. So we've got everything from, Tungsten Village that came up, or ADU regulations. We had short-term rentals, talked about long-term rentals and financial incentives for affordable housing. So in essence, the purpose of these slides is to show that affordable housing has been on the forefront of the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees' mind, and there is work that has been done and will continue to be done regarding affordable housing. Karen also identified a series of financial assistance programs, down payment assistance or first-time homebuyer programs. There's also low interest rates for revolving loans. There's some grant programs. So we plan to also pull together a resource for people. Again, we're not trying to change the building code where it's astronomical to build here, but nonetheless, we recognize that there would be an increase. And so identifying those financial assistance programs is important to us as well. So you all are our last meeting of March. As you can see, we've done quite a bit of public vetting. We had 3 public charrettes at the beginning of the month and then attended different boards and commissions. Some of the feedback we got from the Board of Trustees was specifically an interest in green building code, which I know we've talked about it, and Hunter was also involved in looking into. And so they wanted to know what were the standards. So we provided a link to the International Green Construction Code. They also were interested in home orientation in order to capitalize on passive solar, which is where this res check comes into place. And then also passive heating and cooling. And there's a link to where that is in the Energy and Green Construction Code. We have a dedicated website to building code, so I encourage you to check it out. There's lots of information on there. You can click on this link and I'll send this PowerPoint to you. Or if you go to our homepage on the right-hand side, there's this icon and you can click on that. So we give this presentation, but the kind of caveat is there have been some changes. Originally, we were anticipating an adoption of middle of summer. At this point, because of all the feedback we've received from the public charrettes, we are recommending that any changes go into effect January 2022. And a lot of that is because we want the Envision action plan to be developed, because ideally our building code needs to mirror the goals and objectives that they identified. Since we're pushing the time frame out, there's also been a discussion about whether or not we should be looking at 2021 instead of 2018. So our team is working on a pros and cons list of adopting 18 versus 21 and plan to bring that to the Board of Trustees on the 6th. Either way, we'll do some more public vetting in the fall of 2021, and this will come back to you. But before I jump into questions, and I know we're getting towards the end of this meeting, Garrett, is there any, do you want to chime in on anything related to energy? You know, we may want to have kind of a separate meeting, but go ahead.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yeah, please. And I just want to clarify too, so tonight really we're giving you an idea of where we're going and then looking for your feedback. And since I know we're running on time, you can obviously give that to us at any point in time. You can email it to us, but the work Garrett is doing ties significantly into SAB's goals and objectives. So Garrett, your turn.
Yeah, so Nederland is on 2012 building codes. And if you compare 2012 to 2006, the efficiency gains is actually incredible. 30% efficiency gains when compared to 2006. If you look at the next version, the codes have largely stayed the same. However, the way in which builders meet these codes has changed drastically. Now, in 2015, they are required to have a third-party energy inspector submit a report that looks like this. And the nice part about this is it allows the builders flexibility in order to attain the energy rating index required by code. So starting in 2015, if you're on 2015 like Boulder County, they can adjust their code to set really progressive targets. So you can see here on the bottom left is the HERS index. So this home scored an energy index of 57. The lower the score, the more energy efficient it is. The higher is the less energy efficient. 0 would be a net zero home. If a score of 100 would be a home that reaches the 2006 energy code. So 2015, the energy efficiency requirements didn't change much. It didn't really make an impact on energy efficiency gain, but instead it does require that home builders get this report done. And so part of this report, they measure house tightness. I don't know if I could scroll in. Yeah. So here they can measure house tightness, ventilation, duct leakage to outside. So there's a lot of cool things that that they can measure to really understand the home performance. So that's 2015. 2018, there wasn't really any notable changes. The expected efficiency is anywhere between 2 and 5%, so not much there. That's likely the reason why Boulder County has not updated 2018. They've modified the 2015 codes. However, in 2021, the expected efficiency is 10%. So it's a huge jump in efficiency from 2015 to 2021. And based on what I've seen, if you're comparing 2021 to 2018, you're looking at EV charging and readiness for residential buildings. They banned continuous burning pilot lights in certain appliances, increased hot water equipment efficiency, increased ceiling insulation, lower fenestration U factors. Miranda showed you the picture of that window. That's exactly what that is measuring. So there's a lot of things in the 2021 code that would make a real big difference for energy efficiency. If we just move to the 2018 code as a standard, that wouldn't make much of a dent. We're looking at 2 to 5% difference. However, if we amended the 2018 the way Boulder County did with the 2015, or maybe we bring over some measures of the 2021, then we can get to that 10% that the 2021 codes is performing. But the big thing is that HERS energy rating, that report that I just showed you, that allows town planners, the board of trustees, to set targets that allow for better energy efficiency practices. So that's my quick little spiel there.
So obviously we know that these presentations is like information overload. Is there any initial comments, questions, feedback, or anything SAB would like us to look into further? Ken, I don't know if your hand is new or old, but.
Yeah, so I saw that one of the things you guys are looking at adding is the tiny house chapter. But I'm also wondering if that addresses kind of alternative building structures in general, or does it only address small kind of transportable structures like that?
It's really just a small transportable, but I will tell you that the Housing Envision 2030 committee is really interested in requesting that for their 10-year goal that we look into alternative housing structures. Municipal government and economic development is also pushing to change ADU code to make those easier to develop. So that's why we really want Envision to flush out, because if that ends up being an identified goal that we set, building code will need to be amended so that it can mirror those desires of the committee and the community.
Hey, my first take on just hearing with this new code stuff, my mind keeps going to the low income people in the old town and this, the smaller valued homes, not the new construction necessarily in the bigger homes, and then we talked about the fire, I'm not sure at what point they say it's a major remodel and they require fire suppression, for instance, which adds to the cost in something like that. And if we were trying to get people to replace windows, and if they replaced all their windows, is that considered major and now they're required to do fire suppression? And we would want them to do fire suppression. We'd like anyone to do it, I would think. And I would think we'd want to have some sort of figure out something like we did Solarize, Nederland, where we find a contractor to come up and do like bulk fire suppression systems for cheaper because we're above the average and that kind of thing. Anyway, that was all I had to say.
And I can address that a little bit. Right now, we're looking at requirements for sprinklers with a remodel, but just replacing windows or something like that would not meet that threshold at all. Primarily, this is just for new construction with the sprinkler systems. Like I said, we're still discussing lots of pros and cons to at what point in a remodel it might require that, but where we've been heading so far is it's going to be a significant remodel before that requirement would kick in. That's our thoughts and at this point.
I would suggest that we might see if there's a way for to get some sort of subsidy or something if someone's doing a remodel that doesn't require one, if they want to voluntarily put one in. Because it sounds like it'd be a good thing for our community to have more suppression.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't heard of, grants and assistance for that sort of thing. It doesn't mean they're not out there. We have done things like there's a house going in Big Springs right now that is voluntarily putting the system in, and we're waiving our plan review and inspection fees for that. It only would have been about $100 or so, but that's some savings. We're also looking at possibly making a change in how close hydrants have to be in residential areas if more of the houses are sprinklered, because they won't require as much water. So we're looking at some of those trade-offs there, seeing what we can do in the community and make that happen.
Well, if the town could somehow offer a little more incentive for people to voluntarily do it when they're not required, I think it would benefit all of us.
Yeah. And one other point somebody brought up in an email to me about, a lot of people can't afford it, and I certainly understand that. Like you mentioned earlier, the new bigger houses, mostly that isn't a problem. But one of the issues that we've kind of seen across the country is that the lower income people kind of get the shaft on everything, including safety. So I think if we can find some funding out there, find some grants, that's a great idea, especially to help those kind of folks out, to get them some better safety for their homes.
Karen, did you have a question? I don't know if your hand was up from earlier or now.
Yeah, it's for now.
Okay.
Garrett, or maybe, Garrett, do we know what Boulder County is doing as far as adoption of the energy efficiency requirements from the 2021 building code?
Yes, they are moving to 2021.
Okay, thanks.
And to that point, Karen, so we actually have been in contact with Boulder County. And so in a part of our kind of pros and cons list to the Board of Trustees is an acknowledgement that they are moving to 2021. And so there could be an opportunity to really collaborate and work together. Now, of course, Nederland is not going to be all of Boulder County, but there may be areas where they have the resources and the personnel who could provide guidance to us as we look to adopt and amend those codes ourselves.
Do you think they'll adopt it wholesale, or just choose pieces from it?
I think they're already aligned with 2021 very well based on the progressive code changes that they made in 2015. So I don't think they'll adopt the standard. I think they have the resources that they'll probably go beyond 2021.
Okay, thank you.
So I did send you all the PowerPoint so you can look at it in your free time, and then our website if you want to kind of click around. Like I said, we are kind of changing our path for how we move forward just to give us more time to research. So I would say that, we'd like to continue to touch base with SAB about this topic, even just briefly during your meetings over the next, or throughout the rest of the year, to get your feedback as we work on the changes. And just want to really acknowledge Garrett. There's so many things that Garrett does, but this is yet another piece we've added to his plate, and he's done so much work to look into really the energy in the Boulder County comparison. So Garrett, I just want to thank you for all that work, and I'm excited to see how we move forward.
That sounds great.
Thank you so much, Brenda and Rick. Any last thoughts from the SAB before we adjourn? All right, I will officially adjourn the meeting at 8:59 p.m. then.
All righty. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.